Hi, welcome to Infusion Health, the podcast. I'm comedian Chris Patrick, a.k.a. self-proclaimed power man. And I'm here with my co-host and significant other, Rach.
Hey, guys.
Now, today we're talking about something, and I'm sure everybody's had a family member or somebody they know or somebody in their neighborhood or some who suffered from this, I'd like to say horrific disease, but it's a really bad disease that happens to a lot of people. We've also lost some stars to it. People like one of the first stars we heard that suffered from it was actress Rita Hayworth and musician Glenn Campbell. Today we're talking about Alzheimer's, and we have Monica Zoll on here, who's she's a
coach.
A coach.
Yeah.
She coaches a life coach, not a life coach, but
No, kind of end of life. Just how to deal with everything. Anyways, welcome her in.
Into life coach. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
So tell us because like I said, we lost actress Rita Hayworth, and the reason I mentioned her because she was when I first heard about it years ago. That was one of the first famous people we heard that suffered from this, and I know Glenn Campbell, the singer Glenn Campbell, suffered from it too. Can you tell us about what you did with it? Because I guess you took care of a loved one that had that.
Yeah, it was my mother. So
Okay.
my mother, I was her full-time caregiver for almost 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
while also raising two young kids.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom was having not what you would consider traditional signs of Alzheimer's, right? Like people always think memory loss, but hers was manifesting in different ways. She was having like some OCD like symptoms. She was obsessing over hand washing and obsessing over my children getting hurt. She was always worried about them getting hurt. Mm-hmm. So I kept sending her in for tests. I honestly was thinking like, I don't know, does she have a brain tumor? Like I wasn't even going down the direction of Alzheimer's.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Because there was nothing that she had necessarily forgotten until one day she got lost going to the mall driving, which she had done a gazillion times. Okay. But she still, even though she'd gotten lost, she was able to remember the home number, call my father and say, I got lost going to the mall, and he talked her through it and she got there. Mm-hmm. So obviously we were still like, is that Alzheimer's? Like, what is that? So it was a lot of, honestly, pushing the doctor. I've never had to push so hard to get anything done, but the doctor was very dismissive of it. It was writing letters. It was making phone calls. It was finally had to show up in person.
Okay.
And that's when, he finally took it seriously, which seems crazy to me. It took that much, but I had to kind of fight for it. And then she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that's when my youngest was probably 4 years old, 4 and 6. So I was definitely juggling. I was that sandwich generation, and my dad didn't know what to do with his diagnosis, how he was going to manage the house and my mom and what was the long-term plan. And so we decided to move into the house, and we built an in-law suite, and I became completely committed to taking care of my mother.
Sure.
So yeah, that was how it all began in a nutshell.
Yeah, because I've seen things, and I've like, I worked with a guy, and he ended up getting fired. Well, that's another reason. But I worked with him, and he said his mother, it was so bad, his mother didn't recognize her own children.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that happens, and it can happen towards the end. So my mom's progressed pretty slowly for the most part. Okay. And then at the end, there was just this big jump. And then she lost her ability to speak. So she wasn't speaking at all. Mm-hmm. I knew she knew who we were because she was like, her face would just glow when she would see us. But she couldn't say our names or who we were. But bizarrely enough, she could read. Like if we wrote things down, she could read what we'd written, but she couldn't come up with the words herself.
Sure, sure.
But everybody's is so different. You know, that's the important thing to when you have a loved one who's just things are changing, is to realize that everybody's different. It doesn't always show up with simple memory loss.
So, now, Monica, how many years did she suffer with this?
So from the diagnosis, it was 10 years. But it was probably longer. Like when I think back to things that were going on, like she started isolating from friends.
Okay.
And that seemed odd. Like she wouldn't reach out to friends anymore. And I think it's because she knew something was wrong. And she was afraid to get found out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think she's of the generation, like there's so much shame in any brain disease and mental illness.
Yep.
And there still is, obviously. There's still stigma, and it's hard, you know, it's heart-wrenching. There's still stigma, and Alzheimer's is one of those that I believe, you know, my mom felt there was a stigma, and she was, once she got the diagnosis, she said, don't tell anyone. I don't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
And she really, at the beginning, was really hard because she really struggled with some anger issues. But once I'd made the decision to move in with her, so we'd all had made the decision to move in with her, and she wasn't going to have to leave her house. I think she realized she was going to be okay, and she settled. She knew that she was, and I assured her constantly, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. And that assurance, I know, really helps. That's something that when I do coach caregivers, is that, you know, telling them to constantly repeat, you know, affirmations like that to their loved ones, because it's so scary. I don't know what it feels like, but I can only imagine. But it feels like to be losing your memory and a part of your brain. I can't, you know. So all you can do is give them as much reassurance and love, and hope that kind of tries to settle them down a bit.
Well, I saw a thing where they said like music, like certain songs and stuff like that you've heard through your life that they play like they could play that to all time, and they will remember it and stuff like that because it's so etched or something like that. It brings back different memories.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like that was. So my mom was Venezuelan. She grew up in Venezuela, and music was a huge part of her life. My grandfather wrote music. Her cousin was a harpist, and brother was a harpist, and so up into the end, I would play her favorite music, and until the day she died, I had it playing actually nonstop when she was in hospice and dying. But yeah, so she wouldn't speak. Hardly could speak at all, but when I would play the song, you'd hear her singing it. And that's another thing I tell people when they're caregiving is, so you'll find many times that people with Alzheimer's or dementia, they get really frustrated, which of course as a caregiver, then it throws you in a turmoil and you get worked up, just like, you know, you do as a parent when you're stressed out. It's really hard, obviously, to decompress. And one of the tools I say is like, have those songs handy, like get that music going, you know, dance together, get moving, laugh together, you know, sometimes just breaking out in laughter is, I'm not big on that. Like some of the things were so ridiculous that you just had to laugh, you know, you know, to bring you joy.
Yeah.
But the toll on caregivers is huge. I mean, I paid a huge toll physically. And that's kind of what my mission is. I think that, so when my mom, after she passed, like during, you know, the whole time of her life, it was all about her and the kids. I felt like, you know, those stretchy dolls of the 70s, I think they were in the 70s, they would like stretch, as a Mr. Stretch, it would stretch out really, really far, like the arms and the legs. Like all the limbs are stretched out. Like, that's how I felt a lot. Like, I was just going in a gazillion directions. After she died, not even a year after she died, then my father started having some the really bad back issues where he couldn't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives with us. And so he got me up in the middle of the night once with really horrific pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so during my mom's life, I was getting up a lot during the middle of the night.
Sure.
She would call me, like, your mom won't sleep, or your mom fell, or your mom this or that. So getting up again in the middle of the night after she had died, I guess, brought back a lot of trauma.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a full-blown, what I think is a panic attack.
Okay.
I wound up on the floor of my living room, like, screamed for my husband, who ran down and found me on the floor. He was like, "What's happening?" And I was like, "Just come take care of my dad." He ran and did. Finally, I peeled myself off the floor. I don't know when.
Mm-hmm.
To wind up with the shingles, I think 2 days later. So my body was basically screaming at me, like, "You have not taken care of yourself in I don't know how long." So the shingles then led to a diagnosis of cancer during the pandemic, that later brought me to become certified in coaching and learning techniques to help myself and then, like, share with others too.
Sure. And so from the diagnosis until she went into hospice, how many years did you take care of her? Like, when did she go into hospice finally?
Oh, I took care of her the whole time except for the last months of her life.
Okay.
Yeah, she started falling constantly. And then we put her into an assisted living right near the house.
Okay.
Because the falls were getting to the point that my dad's health was starting to deteriorate because he couldn't sleep.
Okay.
And then she had her final fall. She only lived there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then she had a fall. Then she was in hospice there.
All right.
So when you as a kid, taking care of your parents, you find out, you get a little older, 40 or whatever, and you find out that your parents have this. What would you suggest, or how would you coach somebody into getting through this? Because you got to change your lifestyle as far as doing your business, raising your family, and all that, and you got to take care of your parents, which of course you should. But how would you coach somebody into going through this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge shift. I think first is to really reshift the relationship, like, in your own mind. You've got to realize that now your roles are reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not an easy thing to do. And it's a process sometimes every day.
Yeah.
Because I think, my mom was such a caregiver to me and took such strong, like, always cared for me. She was a very Latina mother who always wanted to cook for me and take care of me, even as an adult, said, "What can I bring you? What you need to eat, or this or that."
Sure.
So it was very hard to recalibrate that and think, like, oh no, like, she's my child now.
Yeah.
The roles get reversed.
100. 100.
And it's really hard. It's really hard to make that transition. It's harder for some people than others. But I think that's something that I coach my clients on, is to kind of work through that. And sometimes that's therapy, because sometimes there's other underlying issues that they need to work through with their parent, or themselves, I guess, on how they were raised. But another really is to, like, kind of go through your network, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to need support. Like, somebody could say, I mean, I've had friends recently that I'm not coaching them, but they're friends, and they're just starting to notice things change and shift for their parents. And I said, I'm not asking you to go to worst case scenario, I tell them, but just have a plan. Like, so start thinking about, okay, so my parent lives in such and such location. Is this with stairs a good choice long term? 5 years, 10 years.
Right.
If it's not, like, start making a plan now, because you don't want to be in an emergency situation where you're like scrambling to sell the house and get them apartment or get them into assisted living.
Right.
Slowly start to like make a little bit of a plan. So you know what's going to happen. I also say like reach out, even just make a list, like brainstorm all the people in your life that love you and love your parents. Make a list of everybody. They don't even have to live in the area. And then you can see that almost all those people can help in one way or another. They don't even have to live in the area. It can be, you know, sometimes it's simply getting like a break to take a shower. Like there are caregivers that can't get a shower in.
Right. Yeah.
Like literally they can't get in the shower, which is, you know this from when your children were little, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you couldn't shower. You're like, I can't shower today.
No.
It's the same thing. And I think when you have a family member, say, that lives in another state, simply having them call in and have your loved one on the phone with them, just that, then you can jump in the shower. You can take a little bit of a break.
Yep.
Or they, say like, I can use some help with, sending me some supplies over Amazon. I might need like some, things come up like diapers, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Walkers. Things come up that you're really gonna need help on.
And I think you absolutely need to give yourself grace. I have worked in the hospital for almost 3 years, seen a lot of people just starting to get Parkinson's or dementia of some kind, and those family members stay true to their family member, and it's great. But we are there to absolutely help you, and other people that you love want to take care of you also. So I think you need to give yourself grace. It's okay to leave your loved one long enough to go eat something, go take a shower, go take a rest. Like, I know you're heightened in fear and what if, but you have to give yourself that grace.
I actually see that as like honoring your parents, right? Like as a mother, I would never want my children to sacrifice their well-being for me. Right? So I feel that is a way of honoring the person that you're actually caring for by taking care of yourself. They're your parents. They gave you life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
They want you to take care of yourself. They don't want you to sacrifice everything for them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I try. I try and remember them. I try and feel that. Like, also, like a lot of, like you said, like you can give yourself all this negative self-talk. Like, I shouldn't take the time because I got to be there and take care of my mom.
Yeah.
I shouldn't do it like that. I shouldn't go get a manicure with my friends. But it's also like remembering again, like, wait, how would my mom talk to me?
Yeah.
My mom would be like, go get those nails done. Like,
have that release.
Yourself,
have the release. Yes. Yeah. Another thing that I think a lot of people need to have the conversation, and my dad dealt with my grandma having dementia at the end of her life, and it took a toll on him, how much he had to be at her house and then at the nursing home. But because with her dementia, she got physical towards the staff and stuff like that. And she had hallucinations. And unfortunately, that does happen to some people. And you're like, it was the kindest person. I don't know what happened to him, but it's a deteriorating mind disease. And I think the conversation that my father has absolutely put on me is having that open communication before anything like that might happen, because it's in the generational health dialogue of my family. And so he wants me to know in those moments what he wants for himself, what he wants me to do.
And that's part of lifting the stigma, right? Like what we talked about before at the beginning. That's such a good point, but we have to lift the stigma of it. I know my mom felt shame. And shame is toxic.
Yeah.
Right. And it makes you, and that shame that she felt with that disease, she was hiding so much and hiding from friends, not spending time with them, and kind of lashing out with anger. My mom, on the other hand, like I know some people, like you just mentioned, get really violent and angry. She was more at the beginning, and then she settled, thankfully. Okay. I think she had her moments every now and then. She was a feisty lady.
Well, that's one of the things too with losing a loved one, especially if you're close to your parents and stuff like that. Back in between 2003 and 2007, I lost 3 really important people in my life: my brother, my mother, and my father. And one day, I was working out with my friend, and my friend was like, me and my sister were talking about you, and I'm like, good things, I hope. He's like, well, no, what we couldn't what we couldn't believe about you, and we were so admired by you, is that you suffered 3 major deaths within such a short time. Your brother, your mother, and your father, and you didn't drink one drink, you didn't do any alcohol, you didn't drink one drink, you didn't do any drugs and all that. I said, yeah. I said, well, that's one of the reasons why I keep coming to the gym, to work this out. I said, but one of the things I've always found is that what that person wanted for you to do, Does that person say to you, hey, you know what, since I'm dying, I want you to go out and get as drunk as you can, take as many drugs as you can? No, they want you to go out and live your best life and be your best person, and make us proud from up above,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's honoring your parent, honoring your brother, honoring those that love you. That's the way to honor them, is to really take care of yourself, and finding tools like working out, or if it's, I really turn to meditation, when things got, really stressful for me. Just simply even taking a few deep breaths before I had to get her in the shower. That really helped, because that was, and then it was adapting to losing her, which was like, I was so committed to taking care of her, and losing her, losing someone I loved dearly was painful. But with Alzheimer's, it's interesting, but you're actually losing the person while they're still physically alive. You're losing a part of your relation. You're losing the relationship you've had because the person is changing, right? The love is still there, but there's a shift, and it's a different sort of mourning that you're going through. And then when she was physically gone, it was really an odd feeling of not knowing what to do with myself for a while. I felt kind of shaken, like, wait. I saw my dad here, he's 86, he's doing great, but he didn't need me to help him with all the things that he did. He's super independent. So, and my kids were getting older. They wanted me out of their space. So yeah, it's been, it's a shift in that sense, but,
so then you had people around you, but you were still kind of alone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's finding what healthy ways to replace that loss. Right. While honoring my mother. Right. So, and to me, that is actually coaching caregivers, like coaching people who are in this situation and passing it forward so that they can honor their parents or their loved one, and on and on. Yeah. So yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey, because I remember like some of the things of my mother. I remember one time at the point, and I didn't lose her to Alzheimer's. I lost her to she had liver cancer, and she was walking. I was walking her back to the room upstairs, and I'm walking her back to the room, and she goes over this like middle rug, and the rug kind of got fumbled or whatever, and she's trying to straighten the rug, because my mom was a very clean freak, so she was trying to straighten the rug. I'm like, Mom, I'll take care of it. Just let's get you back to the room, But that was her,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like she wanted to continue how she'd always lived her life.
Yeah.
Actually, that reminds, like, going to somebody like, say, with Alzheimer's, for my experience with my mother is, she was always home. She took care of the house. She liked to keep the house clean. And whenever I would notice she would get bored, like, she would do things that were dangerous. Like, she started putting socks in the oven and almost started a fire in our house.
Right.
So I started figuring out if I emptied the drawers and had her just like fold laundry or put matching socks together, that gave her purpose and a job, and she enjoyed it. She could do it all day long.
Right.
I could empty that same drawer over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just one example, but it reminded me of what you said about your mom. It's something that, you know, she was used to doing all of her life and made her feel good. It gave her a purpose. And having a purpose is really important.
Right.
No matter if you're Alzheimer's or what I think as you age, you know, people can kind of put you aside like, okay, just sit there and watch TV.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right?
Over parent your parents. Yeah. I think you need to honor who they are in that moment and give them as much love and attention to what they want to do in that moment in the most safest way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. I would say the biggest thing for me, losing my parents, because all of a sudden it's like, boom, here I am. No parents. And everybody's like, well, you know, what are you going to do? You have no parents anymore. I said, yeah, but all you can really do is just think about and hope that they put enough knowledge and enough stuff into you as far as knowledge and where about and how to be a good person and all that, you know, they gave you enough of that to help you go it alone, to help you go forward, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I spend every morning, like I have a practice where I meditate in the morning. I say a prayer in Spanish that my mom used to say. And then I honestly have a little chat with her every morning. And I think it's just a way for me it just connects me still to her.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to keep the relationship going.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say they write letters to their parents. But I could see losing both, and I've heard this from many people. My father's still with me, but losing both is another big hurdle. It's a different pain that I know will come one day, but I heard it's a hard one. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
mm-hmm.
yeah,
and it is hard. It is hard, you know, losing your parents, especially like you said before. Seeing your parents in a different light, you know, like your mom, my mom liked to clean the house and all that. And when they can't do that anymore, and when stuff's like, my mom was, you know, she was bedridden and stuff like that, and not seeing her up and not seeing her moving like that. I mean, it was hard. I mean, it was really, really hard, but I had to stay focused and just basically, be with who I was. And, you know, I had a few conversations with her at that time, you know, and she was just like, you know, what are you going to do? You know, go forward. Just go forward. Just be your best person. You know, you know, you've always been a good guy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that like a mother, even like, that's just, you know, that's a mom, like, right? Like even you're sitting there, you're sick, you're dying, and your concern is like how your child is and how they're going to do in the future. That's a mom to the core.
And that was mom. That was mom, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like, you know, raising the kids, dealing with the kids. I come home and I'm like, okay, why is this here? Why is this stuff in the living room? Why is this? And they're like, God, he's such a way. I'm like, well, I like a clean house, you know, and that's how I grew up with my mom, you know, and I knew if my mom came into our house, she would not accept it. She's like, you got to clean this up, you know, and that's where I get it from, you know.
And something for the listeners and for you to know that is Cris came into my family when it was already made. So I already had the 5 kids. So
Got it. He's like, wait a minute.
Well, that was the thing. See, we started dating long distance, right? And she'd call me up. She's like, I'm so tired. I was at work and I got to clean the house. I said, what do you mean you got to clean the house? You got 5 kids here. That house should be clean.
Yeah.
I like come home and I don't accept it. It's like, well, get up. And they're like, well, we were sleeping. I don't care. Get up, clean it. You should have been done, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As mine walk through the house, things become a mess. I'm like, I don't even know how it happens. It like falls out of their pockets or something. I'm like, what's happening? It was clean a minute ago. He just walked by.
But there's a special saying that I've always held with me, and it's this old woman looking back in her life, and she's like, when my children were younger, I wanted a clean house. Now my children are gone, and I pray for the dirty house. So
that's true.
I always tell the young mothers, now that my children are almost adults, that to just take that time. I was so busy raising 2 sets of twins by myself. And when they were at a young age, that I didn't have those moments. So I always tell those mothers, younger mothers, to enjoy that.
It's so true. I know. And I try to remember that now too, even with teenagers. I'm like, I'm going to miss this stage.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine, but I actually am.
Yeah.
So just, breathe and take it in and enjoy it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, Monica, this has been a great conversation. And if somebody wants to reach out to you, I just want to say I'm glad I got through this without crying.
Oh, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you talking about your parents.
Yeah,
that
stuff is really, really hard for me to talk about sometimes.
Still raw.
But if somebody wants to get a hold of you, you got Monica Zoll Coach .org or Monica.
Yeah, it's Monica. Yeah, it's Monica Zoll, Z as in zebra, OLL, coaching.com.
Okay. And to our listeners out there, if you have a family member or somebody close to you that is going through this horrific disease, please reach out and get Monica. And we just want you to know that you're not alone and you don't have to go this alone. And definitely, if you're having trouble, definitely seek help.
Absolutely.
It can feel very lonely. And especially during the pandemic, I know a lot of people were really alone during all this because you were scared to expose your loved one to anybody else. So it's been a very challenging time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Building that trust. All right.
And I'll let Rach close us out.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we've come to an end. If you appreciate what you listen to, please subscribe, you guys. And like Monica said, always honor your family, have those conversations. And on here, we're trying to build lines of love where history was born in lines of hate and make you guys your best advocate and your best selves. Have a great one.
Take it easy.